my name is Aidan Fitzgerald, and we're interviewing John Wayne Gacy. How you doing? My name is Aidan Fitzgerald.
Good. Nice to meet you. I'm John Wayne Casey.
So, you're a pretty famous murderer, right?
Yes.
How many people did you kill?
33.
Okay, so what was your childhood like? How did your life start out?
Well, I'm from Chicago. That's where I grew up. I grew up with abusive parents. My dad was a drunk and he beat me and my siblings.
It's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Do you remember any other strange childhood memories?
Well, as a child, I didn't fit into my school because I had a heart problem and I couldn't play with other kids.
You poor thing. I'm sorry about that. Is it true that when you were a child you got hit in the head with a sling?
Yes. When I was 11 years old, I was hit in the head, and it actually gave me pretty bad head trauma. And I had a brain clot, or a blood clot that went unnoticed until I was 16 years old.
Wow. That's unbelievable. So after high school, did you go off to college and get away from your father?
Well, I never actually graduated from high school. I went to Las Vegas, and I attended. I was a mortuary attendant.
Oh yeah, mortuary attendant, huh?
Yeah, that was.
Tell me about that.
Well, it was good until one day I decided to climb up next to a little dead boy and cuddle with him.
Inside the coffin?
Mm-hmm.
A dead boy?
Mm-hmm. So that's when I found out I should probably quit that job.
So after you quit the job, what did you do?
Back to Chicago and and I went to college.
Oh yeah, Northwestern Business College. In Chicago, I assume?
Yes, in Chicago.
What made you decide to go to business college?
Well, my father was in business and I wanted to impress him.
Nice. You just wanted his acceptance?
Yes, yeah. I graduated in 1963 in an undertrained position at Nunn Bush Show Company.
Seeing anyone at all during the time?
Well, shortly after at the Nunn Bush, I was transferred to Springfield, Illinois to work as a salesman. In March '64, I became engaged to a coworker of mine. Her name was Marilyn McMayers.
Oh yeah? What was this like? What was she like?
Well, during the beginning of the marriage, I had joined with the JCs.
Let's just keep going. The narrator we'll do like.
Here I was known as a hard worker and was even named the organization's key man. It was also where I encountered my second homosexual experience.
Oh, so this is after you found yourself in the coffin with that dead boy.
Yes. I had no idea what I was doing with him. I guess I've just always questioned my sexuality. Heck, I may well be considered myself a bisexual.
Was this the end for you and the coworker?
Yes, it had to be. I had a wife. Luckily, Marilyn's father was the owner of 3 different KFCs in Waterloo, Iowa. And in 1965, he offered me a job being a head manager of all the 3 restaurants. So it was off to Waterloo.
So you guys moved to Waterloo. Was this the end of your JC's experience?
No, I became a member of the Waterloo JCs after we moved, but this wasn't like the JCs in Illinois. The JCs in Waterloo was associated with prostitution, pornography, and drugs, and I happened to be deeply involved in all of it.
What was your family like during this time? Did you have any children? Did they know what you were up to in the JCs?
In 1967, Marilyn gave birth to our son, Michael, and then to our daughter, Christine, a year later. Our family was perfect. I went out of my way to make sure my children had everything I didn't when I was a kid.
So you have the perfect family and a great job, but you continue to stay involved in the JCs. Why is that?
The young men I worked with, I was attracted to each and every one of them, and would force them to have sex with me. In August of 1967, I was charged with my first criminal offense. I was convicted of sexually assaulting a 15-year-old Donald Voorhees, the son of a fellow coworker. I had promised on showing him pornographic films, and if he came into my house, he did. Then, after pounding him with booze, I forced him to perform oral sex on me.
Oral sex
Yes.
with a 15-year-old boy. What were the charges?
What were the charges? 10 years in prison for sodomy on a child.
Sodomy on a child, eh?
Yes.
So what about Marilyn? What did she do in response to the charges?
She filed a divorce as soon as she found out that I was convicted.
Wow, that's unfortunate. So did you ever really see your two kids after that?
No.
Wow, that's awful. So what was your life like after prison?
The day after I was released, I went back to Chicago to live with my mother and obtained a job as a cook in a restaurant. Oh, I got lucky, that's for sure. And the following year, my parole ended. I was a free man.
What kind of person were you viewed as back in Chicago?
I covered up my criminal record for friends, and I was able to keep like family members and all that.
Yeah, so you were
close to
like,
me.
no one really knew about what happened back in Waterloo. So was your mother supportive during this time?
Very much. With her financial assistance, I bought a house in Norwood Park Township in Cook County, Illinois. She moved in with me shortly after that. I became engaged to Carol.
Carol Hoff?
Carol Hoff. She had been divorced and was the mother of two young girls. After the wedding, my mother moved out and Carol moved in. After marrying Carol, I quit my job as a cook and started my own construction company. The work we did wasn't too hard, just pouring concrete and painting street signs. The only thing was that I only hired boys in their youth.
Was there ever any abuse toward your employees who were young boys?
Yes, one time, me and a young employee of my construction business traveled to Florida to inspect some property I had purchased. That night, while in the hotel room, I raped him.
What was his response?
He refused to sleep in the same hotel with me for the rest of the trip and slept on the beach. Instead, one day while I was outside of my house, the young man approached me and I was beaten to the ground. Luckily, he didn't press charges.
So exactly what kind of person were you at this point? It sounds like you're getting into a lot of trouble.
I'd say I was a family man. I often attended community fundraisers and town celebrations. I'd even dress up as Pogo the Clown to entertain young children at these events. This is what I was best at.
Interesting. When did you commit your first murder?
Remember when I mentioned the boy who accused me of sexually assaulting him at a bus station, but failed to appear in court? Tim McCoy, I believe his name was. On the morning of the trial, I had woken up to the boy standing in my bedroom doorway with a knife in his hand. I leapt from my bed and McCoy made his way toward me. Slicing my arm, I had no choice but to defend myself, so I twisted the knife out of his hand and repeatedly stabbed him to death.
You stabbed him to death?
Yes.
A 15-year-old boy? Why was he in your house in the first place?
As I made my way to the kitchen, I found a table set with breakfast for two. His plan was to surprise me with a freshly made breakfast and then to wake me up, but when I came into my room, he subsequently still had a knife in his hand.
So he was planning on making you breakfast. That sounds like a load of hogwash to me. So you're saying this young man may have felt affection for you?
It seemed like that after what I saw in the kitchen. After he was dead, I hid the body in the crawl space under my porch.
Was Carol aware of this?
Oh, she had no idea about the murder, but I later confessed to her about my bisexuality and that we wouldn't have sex ever again. The marriage discarded when she noticed the number of teenage boys I was taking into the garage and gay pornography in my possession. We divorced in 1976, however, this wasn't the only murder I committed during the marriage.
What crimes followed?
In 1975, while my construction business was expanding, I arrived at the house of a youth worker who was home alone. I loaded him up with alcoholic drinks and proceeded to lock his hands behind his back with handcuffs.
Did you murder him?
No, before I made a move on him, I left the room for a brief moment. When I returned, the youth was standing there without his handcuffs. Being a member of his high school wrestling team, he pounced at me, wrestling me to the ground until I was stuck in my own cuffs.
Stuck in your own cuffs? How'd you get away?
After hours of threatening him and demanding he wouldn't tell anyone, I finally convinced him enough to let me go, and I immediately left his house.
You said there were other murders while you and Carol were married. What were these murders like? How many people did you murder?
I murdered 2 or 3 teenagers while we were married and hid them all inside the crawl space under my porch.
Wow, when did you regularly start murdering boys? Like, when did this become a regular thing? I know you murdered a lot of people.
Well, by the end of 1977, I already murdered 8 young men between the ages of 16 and 21. Robert Peast, needing a job, then approached me and asked if I'd be willing to hire him, so we set up a meeting. I declined talking to Peast when the police showed up at my door and told them that when I went to the pharmacy, I asked who I believed was Peast whether any remodeling materials were present in the rear of the store, and that I hadn't even offered him a job.
Did they take you to the police station?
Yes, I promised them I would come to the station a little later. At 3:30 a.m., I arrived at the police station covered in mud, claiming I had been involved in a car accident. On the night of December 10th, I went to my lawyer's office and admitted to killing all these